Hello everyone, this is Dr. Unibrow here today, and today, instead of just playing video games, I'm doing something a little different. I'm going to talk about video games. Now in this episode I want to discuss, can video games be considered art? Now according to this definition here that I have pulled up that you guys can't see because it's not in my recording software, it says, art. Noun, the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form, such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. And given that definition, I think the answer is a complete yes. Video games can and should be considered a form of art. Why? Well, first of all, let's start with the first part of the definition. The expression or application of human creative skill and imagination. Now, you have to be pretty imaginative to make a game that is going to be good and is going to sell these days. You have to have either really imaginative story or really imaginative mechanics, otherwise you're probably not going to be noticed among the endless sea of new indie games that come out like every second. The next part of this definition I want to go over is producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. Now some of you may be like, well, video games aren't emotional or whatever, and that is exactly where you're wrong. Because video games, especially modern video games, do everything they can to draw in the player emotionally, so they really connect with the story that is being presented to them in the video game. Now, why is this important? Why am I even talking to you about this? Well, the reason this is important is I think it's important for people to understand that video games can be used to relay serious messages, as can any art form. In fact, they're just as good as books, movies, television shows, what have you, at relaying meaning. If not better. The reason I say that is because of the very nature of video games being interactive. Now, let's say you're reading a book, or a movie, or what? Reading a movie? That doesn't make sense. Let's say you're reading, let's try that again, shall we? Let's say you're reading a book, or watching a movie, or television show, and you've got yourself a story. How do you connect with the main character in these things? In these things, how you connect to the main character is, usually the main character has some sort of aspects like you, something that is relatable to you. Why do you have to do that? Well, because in order to evoke sympathy, books, movies, and television shows require the need to evoke sympathy so you feel for the character. However, in video games, you are the character. For instance, if in a movie or TV show or a book someone's getting shot at, and you're emotionally attached, you'd be like, oh no, my favorite character's getting shot at. In a video game, you're like, oh no, I'm getting shot at. See the difference there? In the video game, you are the character. You're inside their head. You are, in fact, their head. What's going on in here is going on in here but in there, if that makes sense. Anyway, what this basically means is video games don't need to evoke sympathy because, for all intents and purposes, it's happening to you. Whatever's happening to the main character in the game is happening to the player. And because of this, I think video games will become a major storytelling tool in the future, especially for stories that are trying to introduce new ideas and get people to think a little differently. And this is because a video game doesn't require sympathy because there's no one else to be sympathetic towards but yourself. So, what this means, well, overall, what this means is video game stories are easier to connect emotionally to, and therefore mean a lot more for people who play video games than books or movies or television. Which is often why, given the choice, most gamers will choose the video game. So overall, why this is important in the end is I don't really think people take video games as seriously as other forms of storytelling media such as books, movies, or television. For instance, generally, the average person, if they met an author, they would be like, oh cool. If they met someone who worked in movies, they'd be like, oh cool. If they met someone who worked in television, they'd be like, oh cool, nice. You know, so on. And, however, I bet you anything, if the average person, like the average non-gamer, met a game designer, they'd be like, aren't those for kids? And, that's really quite a shame, because of the fact that video games can possibly work better at relaying an internal message than other storytelling media. That is all for this time. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and tell me down in the comments what you want to see me do next time, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!